it's all about that process and all about how do I replicate that at training and continually replicate that at training and continue to build on it at training to the point where it does become automatic and you do go blank and kind of get into that flow and let it happen in front of you and kind of let your mind almost take the handbrake off and just let the car go.
Welcome back to Social Kick. I'm Brian Lundquist. We got a full crew, Dr. John Mullen, Luke Paddington, and joining us between big meets, the Olympic champ, the world champ, the world record holder in the 200 breaststroke, Zac Stubblety-Cook. Welcome, Zac. Good to see you.
Thank you, guys. Thanks, guys, for having me.
Well, when does it get boring, that long intro? When does it get boring? Like world champ, the world record holder, the Olympic champion. Like
oh yeah, it feels pretty strange. I mean, the last 12 months has been an absolute whirlwind. To be Olympic champion was one thing, but then to break a world record earlier this year, I was over the moon and still in quite disbelief. I feel like I was saying to someone the other day, I was like, I still feel like tomorrow I could wake up and it'll be a dream. So yeah, it's all a bit strange.
Do you think about the fact that if you swam like 20, 30 years ago, your retirement would be like the next thing because you've already achieved everything and there's no pro swimming? And I assume that's not what you're thinking, but like that's what the guys of that era and gals of that era were thinking, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a strange thing. I think like that was the first question I got asked after I broke the world record was like, oh, can you swim faster? I was like, oh, come on, like surely there's a better question than that. But I was like, I don't think I've swum my in inverted commas perfect race, and that's I guess what ultimately I'm always pursuing is just the best out of myself, regardless of whether that means Olympic gold or fourth or fifth. It's getting the best out of myself each and every day and trying to translate that into racing.
Did you have some specific goal times coming in? And like to that point, obviously, I think that's sort of natural of elite athletes is looking at their events and never truly being satisfied. I think it's rare occasions where you finish a race and go, okay, like, yeah, I'm really happy with that. I exceeded the goal time, etc. But give us some insight. Did you hit it? Was there for this season?
Yeah, I think so. Like for me, I think if I'm perfectly honest, I think 206.0 or better, I thought we'd win last year. I thought it would be a little bit faster than it was. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, I'd probably been swimming like that for a little while and didn't know where I was going to land. And I don't think we're really thinking goal times and more think of just getting through. I guess my focus for the last 12 months has really been skill and trying to be as efficient in through those skills as possible, and then maintaining the swimming speed whilst lowering the skill times. Interestingly enough, the skill times were slower in the world record than they were at Olympics and Olympic trials last year. But for me, I think like it's hard to say because I think like it was in the realm of possibilities, but by the same token, I'm not really, I guess, focused on an exact time. I think that's not how we're working at the moment. Is more like we're looking towards how do we get the back end faster? How do we get this faster? How do we do that? How do we break down the race and put it all back together? And I think the end of this year, I think that's what we're really focusing on is kind of pulling apart that whole race. And I guess now, like, we've been focusing on a few different people's race plans for the last, 3 years of my training life. And now it's like, okay, well, how do we now change the game and push it even further? I think that's a really, for me, liberating and very exciting position to be in because I think I never thought I would actually get to this position where I'm like, okay, well, like, how do we, go even faster than 205.9? So for me, it's a strange thing to think about and a probably long-winded answer of like, did I think I was going to hit it in this season? But I think like for me, I think it was always there, but I didn't know it was going to happen then and there. And I think it was just a bit of a perfect storm trials. Like it's like coming off the Olympics, having that lack of pressure because of that, and then only having a few of us in the race that were like quite good. And Matt probably swimming the way he did helped me a lot through that race. But for me, I was really comfortable enough to, not be afraid to push the middle 100 And I think that's something I didn't necessarily do at Worlds, but we might get to that. Yeah, so like that middle 100 for me is quite important, and something that, that's probably where I didn't have much fear at trials.
Zac, John, Brian, and I are very experienced 200 breaststrokers. When we were 7, 8 years old, we were all over 200 breaststroke, right? And then we realized our skill set. My point, I want to ask you, how do you know how you're doing? How does Zac know how you're doing within the race? Sometimes you're 8th at the 100. Sometimes you're 4th at the 100. Sometimes you're 4 seconds ahead of the former world record holder. You have a quote saying you didn't know you're on world record pace until the last 50. Are you seeing the scoreboard? Are you doing on the floor and looking like? How do you know where you're doing, how you're doing within the race, and is that affecting your race in terms of making in-race adjustments?
To some degree, I think like obviously at like a world championships and Olympics, you're probably more racing, I guess.
Right.
Is probably the easiest term to use. You're not necessarily racing a clock, to a degree, I guess, is probably the way to put it. But yeah, like, so for example, like Worlds and Olympics was definitely more keeping in touch with those front guys and making sure I wasn't too far behind or getting too excited and burning myself too early, and sticking to my strengths, which is that like probably last 75 meters where it's really sets it up. So for me, that's like really important to know where I'm at, I guess, at the 100 and know where I'm at the 150. But like, in saying that, a lot of the best races, like, you don't remember anything. Like, it's just pure, like, blank. Like the Olympics, I was really present in the marshalling room, which I'm like so happy I was. But then and then onto pool deck, I can distinctly remember like standing on the block. But I can remember kind of turning on the last wall, but then like touching the wall. It was like from there until I got like back to the village is like just a whirlwind of emotions and just like nearly blank. Like, it's quite overwhelming because it's full of emotions. But yeah, to your point, I guess like where I am in the race is like it's hard to know, because like at Worlds, for example, I probably didn't think I was that far behind. I thought I was probably a little bit more in front, but you are aware, but you're more aware probably just on the turns. That's the only time I can really see where I'm at. And occasionally, like, yeah, you can hear the crowd now, but not at the Olympics. Like, you could hear no one. But yeah, at Worlds, I could definitely hear people, and at trials, I could definitely, like, I knew I was swimming fast because I could hear, the stadium started to get alive. So yeah, like, but for me, yeah, it's all about structure, and I like a lot of the swimmers you probably talk to, it's like it's all about that process and all about how do I replicate that at training and continually replicate that at training and continue to build on it at training to the point where it does become automatic and you do go blank and kind of get into that flow and let it happen in front of you and kind of let your mind almost take the handbrake off and just let the car go.
Yeah, the 200 breast is a great event right now where there's a bunch of great athletes from all over the world, right around that world record mark that you have here, that have a variety of race strategies. Hence why you're, at different places at the race and at the 50 and the 100 and things like that. You mentioned at these bigger competitions, just kind of racing, letting the handbrake off. How aware are you of other elite breaststrokers' kind of race strategies, and does that influence kind of what you're doing at those bigger meets when you are just trying to race?
Yeah, it definitely influences it. I guess probably the strategy often becomes don't panic. Is probably the easiest way to put it. Like for me, probably the Olympics, looking back, is like Arno was the biggest one. I was like, I have no idea what he's going to do. I kind of knew Chilcoff's race plan. I knew Matheson's kind of race plan based on the two races. But at the end of the day, like you only have your lane and you can only control what you're doing. I knew that Arno either would go out really fast or come back really fast. It was one or the other. It wasn't both.
Yes, that's two.
Yeah, and I knew Chubkov would come back quite fast, but he didn't look quite on in the semi, so I wasn't sure where he would stand. And hats off to him. He's coming back pretty well. Like he went to a 7-1 on the weekend, I think on Friday, which is good. You know, it's good to see him back in the pool, and it'll be exciting to race hopefully in the coming years. But yeah, like it is a really exciting event. It's something that I really enjoy racing at a high level because of that difference and because everyone's got a bit of a different strategy, and it does become a little bit tactical, I guess. And I guess it is becoming more and more tactical as generally across the sport. Like I know the 400 free was quite interesting to watch, and even the 200 free at World Champs was really cool to watch because I know like Large, just watching him drop a gear, you know, in that third 100, it was like, whoa, like everyone was a bit taken back. I think like he took it out so well, and then just like didn't build through the second 100, but I think that's something he'll work on. But he really did drop the hammer in that last 100 in that you know, the 350 mark. He really just kind of turned it on again, and it was really cool to watch that swim. So yeah, like I think the sport is becoming more tactical in general, but it is always fun to race. Like, and I am aware, but at the end of the day, like I can't control what they're going to do. It's just about my process and getting the best out of myself.
Do you think oftentimes, I feel like we see this more in track and field, but it seems there's certain events in swimming that are starting to trend this direction where race tactics determine what the finishing times are. And it seems like there's certain events in swimming where, like oftentimes in track, you'll see the event at the championship or the final is not at a world record or world beating pace because everybody's racing each other. And I think the 400 is a good example, 400 free, because that race seems to be about gamesmanship and tactics more so than it is about just like swimming in your own lane and going. And you're even saying like, yeah, sometimes it's helpful to have a rabbit out there and that could be motivating. And even though some of your race strategy is to back half intentionally, that's also like, it can be a good thing and a boost for you too. So like, do you think that that's ultimately a good thing for like, you know, seeing the best performance that each individual can do? Or like, I don't know, because like you said, the world record at trials, right? And like although there's tons of pressure at Aussie trials, there are at US trials, there may be slightly less pressure there than maybe in the final at Worlds, so, or at the Olympics. So I'm just curious, like, do you think that that's a good thing to race the field? Or do you think like each individual would be better off if you just like put the blinders on and swam in your own lane and went to your best potential?
It's a tough one because like there's pros and cons to both, right? Like you start thinking about like, yeah, putting your blinders on, but then you start thinking about like how did Chip Kogi break 2-hour marathon? Like,
Yeah,
he had a pace clock. So it's things like that where it's like, yeah, and like a lot of us kind of talk about the possibility of like how fast could you go? How fast could you swim a 400 free, for example, if you had four like you're swimming against a mix, like a team,
right?
Like as a pace clock, like so. But you knew how fast they were going. I guess it's a hard one because when you know how fast you're going, like if you know this person's typically swims out in this time, like you might follow them out, I guess is the easiest way to put it. Like that becomes a bit more of a tactic. And I think that's where it could be more of a progression in the sport. But it is like not necessarily a good thing, but it's probably good for the spectator to also have that tactics at a world champs or an Olympic event. At the end of the day, those are, I guess, spectator events. They are high performance events, but at the end of the day, they're entertainment events too. So it's also like partly about that for me as well. I think like, yeah, at the end of the day, like you want to get the best out of yourself, and the best out of yourself may be to win that race on the day.
Well, let's set it up then. Why don't we do this for 200 breaststroke? Let's make it you should do this like on the back end of Duel in the Pool, right? Where it's like season's kind of over and there's a spectator spectacle event where you've got some of the best breaststrokers in the world who are going to pace you. Like get rid of the lane ropes and then pace you out. And sort of, like what do you think you could go? What do you think you could go in a 200 breast if you had pacers in front that you could draft off of?
I don't know about paces in front, more like, yeah, like setting the pace, like instead of falling into that like underpower state, I guess. I reckon like, yeah, I don't know what could happen. I reckon it'd be more not for me, but I think it would be more exciting to do it like short course 200 breaststroke, because I think like people like there's not as much, I guess, class is probably the most polite way to put it. In it, there's like quite a few like really high end guys, but then like the back like it drops off really quickly. So I think like that would be more interesting. I reckon like you put someone like Kirill or Kirill or Chukov in, and I think like I reckon you could have 156 from them like comfortably, like, which would be unbelievable to go like 29 flat for 450s basically.
I would watch that.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. It would be.
We used to do that, by the way. We used to do time trials. So when you moved up in age group, we had a meet at Christmas time right before you moved up, and you want to get all the national records before you moved up, and we would like time trial to get the record, and a buddy would then come next to you and rabbit you out. Yeah, it was so we did it all the time.
This was before there were rules in Luke's time. There was the total chaos back then.
Yeah. Even like a coach isn't technically meant to like be whistling on the side of the pool. Like technically there's a rule like against pacing, but like everyone does it. So it's like also like, and how can you tell like it's your coach?
Exactly.
Wait, really? I didn't know this.
Yeah. Well, I think it's like at FINA events, you're not meant to have any coach like walk up and down the pool and whistle and stuff, because like technically it's a pacer.
What's the craziest breaststroke shout you've heard on deck from a parent? I had one breaststroke a parent go squeeze, squeeze.
I don't know. I don't really take too much notice about like that kind of stuff. But
These Brisbane meets are crazy.
You gotta remember, Luke swam breaststroke when you had to have your head above the water.
Yeah. We could just call all the time. Yeah.
Well, let's get back to that though. When I did swim breaststroke, so I'm 5 foot. I'm 5'11". I looked up to Mike Barrowman. Mike Barrowman was 5'11". He changed the sport of breaststroke. He held a world record 13 years. He introduced the undulation, and so I was like, damn, there's hope for me being a short guy in swimming. Obviously, then became not a breaststroker. And then Kitajima came along, 5'10", and then it started to get taller and taller. Hansen, keeps going taller. Then what makes you a good breaststroker at 5'11"? What? It's a silly question, but I think it's deep. What makes you good at breaststroke?
I think my kick is the easiest.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Like I have quite a wide range kick. And that's probably why I'm not great at the 100. Like, because I don't have as much upper body strength as those 100 guys, and not as powerful in that regard. Like I'm more, I'd love a 400 breaststroke, but like that kind of thing. So I'm much, like I guess, have much more length because of that kick, which that's the simplest way to put it. And I think like Chukov's the same. He's a little bit taller than me, but we both share that same length in our stroke. And Kid Jim was much the same. Like he was, the master at it really. Like his stroke is still copied to this day. Like it's unbelievable. Like I remember watching like a video of him from the front, and you can't see his whole body. You can just see his hands. You're just like, oh, well, that's like the goal. Like that line through the water is incredible. But yeah, like that's my strength, and try and stick to it.
And your race strategy is reliant on that now, right? Talk about how you mix up your tempo, your stroke count in the beginning to the end, how you rely on your kick to have your distance per stroke yet maintain your speed. Talk about the kick as a foundation of your particular race strategy to do what you do, to come back in a 31, to not panic. Talk about that. It's very interesting.
Yeah. So for me, like my race strategy is obviously like the length through the first lap, try and be as efficient as possible without being under power, is the easiest way to describe it. And then the second and third lap are the kind of build through and maintain that stroke length and with the right tempo. I guess anyone that swims knows that like as you fatigue, you have to increase stroke count and increase tempo to maintain the same speed. Simple as that. And that's why like it looks like I'm sprinting on the last lap when realistically it's actually not that much faster, and I'm going up like 4 or 5 strokes. So so that's probably like the easiest race breakdown. It's just steps, like as simple as that. And like
Yeah.
it was a big thing this season and last season just to try and get 14 strokes to the first 50, which is a strange feeling. It's so strange. Like Chilkoff, when he broke the world record, was 11, which is like insane. It looks like he's doing drill. Yeah. Anyone who hasn't seen that race, it's like, it honestly looks like he's doing like 1 stroke, 2 kicks to the wall. It's incredible. So like for me, it was trying to get my balance of what my most efficient with the fastest speed possible. I guess it's like that. That's the balancing act. Always in the turn of breaststroke. Well, for me anyway. So for me, yeah, and to be able to come back with the kick is vitally important. But yeah, for me, that was part of the kind of strategy going into trials, was those 14 strokes. So for me, trying to get to the first 50, but that meant a lot more skill stuff, a lot more like start. We broke down the start quite well, and we've gotten better at the start. Not world class in quotation marks, but like better. So yeah, for me, that was the biggest thing I had to change. But it's a strange feeling. Like I often do it at the end of sessions, just be like, oh, all right, 14 strokes, trying to hit 30 point ish, or better. It's rarity if you go under 30 point at 14, like in training. But it's a strange thing because you hit the water and you're not trying to sprint, you're trying to like relax, but also like swim fast.
Yeah.
So you're trying to like feel the speed from the start and trying to maintain that speed, almost like trying to hit like your stride running, almost, like, I guess is another analogy. When you hit that like downhill momentum, that's what you're trying to feel. And it's a strange thing to try and chase, and strange thing to try and train. Something I've had difficulty with sometimes and good other times, and trying to find that balancing act. And I don't think I've still quite got it yet. So I'm excited to hopefully get it one day.
How painful is that? How does your body react physiologically? What's your lat take at the end of a well executed race? When do you start to feel that burn?
Probably at the 100, if I'm perfectly honest. At the 100, you start to feel it. You go, oh, this is about to hurt. But at the same time, like the best races, you don't really feel anything, like at all. So it's hard to know like what the lactate is, because we don't really do lactate, say, post race. Like a lot of the sessions we do lactate, but not really racing. And the sessions aren't that close to racing anyway. Most of the time it's like 750 effort, like total. So it's like hard to gauge where that lactate probably is. I'd say after a race, it's probably, for me, floating around 12 to 14. But, other guys in the race, I know that would be well into the 18s.
Whoa.
So
it seems high for a 200 breaststroker.
Yeah, but I mean, by the end of the race, like a lot of those guys that is their sprint pace. Like, sprint. And like you watch, especially a guy like Matt, like he's a big guy that lactates pretty high. Like one of some of his best races, like he comes back in 34, 33. So he's hurting. Like, but his front end is like, he's at 134, 133 at the 150.
Right.
It's like I've never been through in like 133.
Right. Yeah. To your point, it's like when your stroke rate's increasing and you're coming by all these guys in the last 50, it's not that necessarily like you're going faster than them, but they're kind of going backwards too, right? So
yeah. And that was like the thing with like the same with Phelps and like Lochte. Like everyone goes, oh, their turns were like incredible. It's like, but they just weren't dropping. It's as simple as that. Like their turn speed maintained the whole race, and like everyone else's increased. Sorry. So like their turn differential was like tiny, and that's like, I guess it's an illusion in swimming that people often don't quite pick up on. But yeah, those two are the best example of it. Like when you go, oh yeah, Phelps's and Lochte's turns, like kind of they did 0.1 or 0.2 decrease, but like most of the time the differential between was like nothing.
Yeah, they're also phenomenal at like in I think well known for not producing a ton of like high lactate numbers and clearing it really fast too, so they could just turn around and do multiple races one after another. You mentioned this earlier, but with regard to your race strategy, the middle 100, what did you not execute well, or what did you mean by that in terms of the middle 100 at Worlds?
I think the middle 100 at Worlds just wasn't quite where it needed to be. Like I didn't put the pressure on quickly enough. For me, like after the race, I wasn't super gassed, and I was like quite disappointed. Well, not disappointed. I don't want to say disappointed. It's probably the wrong word with, you know, becoming like my first world championship. Like, yeah, it was just like not the race I think I could have executed on that day. I think like I was capable of more after the semi-final. Like I think I had more to give, and I was like 2:06, so I was like, okay, well, we've got more to give. And you know, it was, I think, a little flattening, I guess is the right word. Of like that first 50 was okay, probably slightly under power, and then I just didn't quite build through the way I should have in the middle 100. And like I still came back okay, but like it was a bit of a Hail Mary that last lap. And like, yeah, just the middle 100, I just didn't set it up to the best of my ability. I think it was just a little bit slow, especially the second 50. And that's something really important, is just the rates just dropped too low and was slightly under power. And then building from there, like you're only building off that like already under power. So you're like only at power, I guess, or at your peak performance, then like at 75 to go. So for me, like that's something really important to me, is like, especially going into Com Games, is really working that middle 100. And that's something I know is really important to me, because I know I can consistently come back in 32 in the last lap. So like it's about that middle 100 and maintaining and making sure that middle 100 is correct.
We have your splits for your world record, your world championship, and your Olympic gold. And yeah, the middle 100 is slow, but not significantly slow. When you did the world record, it's 32.4 your second 50. World champs 32.7. Olympics was 32.3. So it was about a 0.4 delta. It is. So yeah, okay, I'm gonna convert to the Commonwealth side of the conversation here, Brian and John. So hold on tight, get comfortable, because I'm from Commonwealth. Com Games are huge for us Commonwealth people. Huge, right? So talk about the importance of the Commonwealth Games to you, Zach. The last one was in your backyard. You go to the beach in Gold Coast all the time when you're growing up. You know, that was a big thing for you, and they didn't work out as you planned. You got Com Games coming up in the Palms, the England. Com Games are in England, and as an Australian, Com Games are huge for you. You've achieved the trifecta. You've got Com Games coming up. Talk about what it means to you to swim in England, swim in the Com Games coming up, and how much you've been looking forward to this racing.
Yeah, I'm really excited to race. Like, it's a very different for me coming into this one. I think my first Com Games, as you said, wasn't my brightest or nicest hour, I guess, but I learned a lot about myself from that race, and learned a lot about myself and how to get the best out of myself. And I don't think I would be here without having that race there. So for me, to give anyone listening context, I didn't make the final at the last Commonwealth Games. So I was 11th or 12th. No, it's 12th. It was like a 2:11 or 2:12, the last Commonwealth Games. Like, not great. And then 3 months later, I went 7-1 or 7-0. So, like, you know, I was at Pampax. So yeah. I was more than capable of swimming well, is kind of what I'm getting at. Like, there was not much change in training or anything like that. It was all mental for me. And that was something I had to learn not the nicest of ways. Like, not having success is always not nice thing to have, but it is what it is. And that's something as simple as you do just need to learn it. Everyone can tell each other, you know, don't get caught up in it all and don't buy into it all and don't get too nervous. But like, at the end of the day, most people do have to experience that for themselves. But it gave me a lot more self-awareness of like who I am, how to get the best out of myself, and all of the above. So for me, that's a really important, probably turning point in my career, that race. And and that's probably why I'm so excited about going into this race. Like for me, it's something different. Again, Commonwealth Games is quite big. Like probably the two biggest things in swimming in Australia are the Olympics and Commonwealth Games. Sadly, World Champs just doesn't get the same coverage. And same with Pan Pacs. Like if you said where was the last Pan Pacs, no one would know. So yeah, like even though in the swimming world, probably Pan Pacs and World Champs probably rank like higher quality meets than a Com Games for some events, not all, but some events. Yeah, like it's a really exciting meet, and it's different meet. Like it's another village environment. It's another one of those multi-sport events where it is just a little bit different and a little bit bigger in that regard, and gets a bit more media coverage as well. So for me, it's an exciting race, and I'm just looking forward to racing internationally again. Like it's been a big season, and we've been in Europe now 8 weeks or something along those lines. So yeah, we've been here a while, but so I am really excited to race and really looking forward to racing. It's day one, which is always nice because you can kind of line your taper up right for your main event. You don't have to worry about that 100. So yeah, I had that luxury at trials, and it's nice to have that again here.
So what are your goals coming into Commonwealth Games for yourself and maybe for Team Australia, if you guys have talked about that as a team as a whole?
Yeah, I guess last year was probably the first year that it came through, as Swimming Australia was like really adamant about a person first approach rather than performance first approach, and that's something that's carried on into this year. Which sounds very counterintuitive to performance, but it's not. I guess the easiest way to put it is like you care about the person first and foremost, and you get the best out of that person and get the unique personality out of that person. You will get the best swimming out of that person. You swim fast when you have fun, and have fun when you swim fast. Isn't also another way to put it. So for us, that's what it's all about as a team. And making each other better through our values of courage, unity, and excellence. So for us, that's what it's all about. For me personally, probably my goal is just to swim faster than World Champs. I think that would be a sensible goal. I'm not sure where that will be, but that's probably, I guess, all I'm gonna disclose. Like I'd like to swim very fast, but I think I'm also a realist. That's like we've been away a while. We've had some sickness, like all of the above. But I am looking forward to racing and having fun racing. I think is a nice way. Like I think World Champs is a little bit different because, like I was going in. I'm still going in favourite here, but like going in favourite in a different context off Olympics and with the whole world there. This is probably, although it's like a bigger meet in terms of Australia, it's also like a lower pressure meet, I guess, and something where I can enjoy myself a little bit more, I think, and have fun, but also remain focused on the process rather than the outcome.
So between 159 and 207 is what you're saying.
You did it first.
You're the favorite. We got a lot of money riding on you, so come on.
Who in the Commonwealth is from the 200 breaststroke under 209?
209. There's quite a few under 209.
Yeah.
The final will probably be all under 209.
No, who in the Commonwealth? I can't think of
Ross, James Wilby.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what Petey's doing. He could probably swim 209.
Yeah.
But his foot and ankle. So Ross, Wilby, Matt, myself.
Right. Gotcha.
They're probably like Wibble 208 or better.
Yeah, cool.
What's Trinidad's top 200 breaststroker right now, Luke?
You're looking at him. No.
Oh, God. 345. All right.
With fins on.
Yeah.
The proud, rich breaststroke history of Trinidad.
Give him that monofin.
Well, so I'm just curious about the multiple meet kind of lineup that you've got here, because trials was a little bit isolated earlier in the year, and then you had to build up to Worlds, but Worlds was kind of the first chip to fall, right? So you got Worlds 6 weeks or so, Commonwealth, and then dual in the pool to come after. Is there anything that you guys you and your coach have approached this with in terms of training to get through 3 main big meets, or take it 1 meet at a time?
Yeah, 1 meet at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's been like, I guess it's hard because it's like our trials this year probably was a little bit different. But we had, because we wanted to do Worlds as well, I had to qualify for Worlds. So I didn't have I had an automatic ticket to Commonwealth Games if I wanted to, and could have just done Com Games like Ariane and Emma have done. So, but for me, like I wanted to do all of it. Like I'm like, well, why not? Like I'm young, I may as well. I don't know how long I could swim for. Like it could all end tomorrow, kind of thing. So you may as well just. I'm of the opinion you may as well just keep swimming and keep that pressure on as long as you can and enjoying that pressure. For me, that's probably what this year was about. Like, so trials was still like a solid meet, and like I think the hardest one was the back up into Worlds, and then getting sick off the back of Worlds was not ideal because we missed probably a week, and then it didn't have that long into this prep, and then Jewel in the Pool when we get back is short course. So, well, is it short course? Yeah, I think it is. Or it's got some short course. It's all different. I'm not sure. They haven't actually released all the program. So yeah. Anyway, so yeah, and then we have short course trials.
You're supposed to know. You're the face of it. You're supposed to know.
I'll be there. I've got Commonwealth Games to focus on between then and now. So yeah, it's just been one meet after the other, and like just shifting that focus each time, trying to reset and refocus and then polish again. So for me, that's what it's all about, and I'm looking forward to a break in September. Is also another thing. So we've been we'll be kind of on the road since June till September, which is like it's long for swimming. It's not long for like other sports. Like when you start talking in the context of like tennis, basketball, and golf, it's like nothing. But you know, for us, it's
Do you think that there's some things, perhaps like this season's some learnings for you too, to figure out like what it is to be able to swim fast at each subsequent meet? Because I don't know. I mean, like ISL is pretty exciting with a lot of different meets, you know, pretty quick in a row. And that's seems to be what works pretty well for other sports. Swimming's yet to adopt that. Who knows if we ever will, but like, you know, regularity of racing and creating fans and stuff. It's like you race regularly. So I'm just curious if, you know, when you approach a season with several meets in a row like this, are there some things training wise, some like particular sets that you go to for pacing that really kind of dial you in and are confidence builders for you, whether that's like, you know, doing stroke rate work, or are there some go-tos that are kind of like you can fall back to them and know like, okay, if I can do this on this sort of set, I'm ready to rock?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's probably every taper. Like, I guess I'm very lucky that I've been with my coach 6 years now. So we have like 6 years of knowledge of every taper and every time we've done something. It's a lot of data, to say the least. But like, I guess we know where we're at given that. But also like, there's a caveat to that, I guess, is like, you can't read into it too much, because if you read into it too much, you write yourself off. Like, it's like a hard balance. Like, so for me, like before Worlds, even like, and even before trials, like in the warm-up, my pace was a little bit off, and I was like, it's okay, like just park it. Like, so it's like a hard thing to know at what point just to like switch off, I guess, and stop reading into that. Like, I guess probably 2 weeks out, you are kind of going, this is where I'm at, this is where I need to be, this is where I need to be pushing, this is what I need to be working on. And then like probably a week in, and then a week in, you're just trying to like focus on the execution of skills and execution of stroke count, stroke rate, and then hoping to get the time. And often when, as you guys would know from your swimming and other bits and pieces or talking to other athletes, you do go into like taper holes. So you also got to be like aware of that. So like probably this morning after travel day yesterday, and then like I had a bit of pace this morning. It was like slightly off. It was good for the first one. And then it was just like slightly off and slightly off, and I was like, this is just like, I'm okay. Like I'm just not feeling the water and just like resetting again. So it's like, it's reading into it, but then understanding the context, I guess.
Right.
Just blame the pool. It's too new. That's all. No. I got a question
Well,
about the train. The pool is nice, right? It's a brand new pool that they just opened just for you guys. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah, so honestly, I'm not sure. Like,
Okay.
like the
You're not
comp
sure
pool,
it's
I
nice
think
or
the comp pool, we haven't been to the comp pool. We go there
Okay.
tomorrow. But we went to the training pool at the uni today, and it's nice. It would be nice if it wasn't busy, but yeah, it's like a 1.5 meter lanes wide. So like I can only swim down the middle. Like, so yeah, it's not like that's just annoying. That's just what it is. It just is what it is, and we'll have to just get used to it. But I'm hoping the comp pool is a little different. So yeah, but we'll see. We'll see tomorrow. But
you guys have the nicest pools. You got beautiful. Brisbane has these beautiful 50-meter pools, just like in neighborhood backyards. They're fantastic.
My training pool is like, I'm so used to it. It's like 3-meter lanes, like wide, 13 lanes across, and then at one end it's 5 meters deep. So that's the Chandler outdoor pool. It's so nice. It's my favorite pool, and it has a ski ramp now.
I got a bone to pick with breaststrokers and warm-up since you brought it up, because I've thought for years every other swimmer hates passing breaststrokers and meet warm-ups. It's the most annoying thing. You know that you're going to get nailed in the stomach when you go by a breaststroker with as powerful of a kick as yours. Do you think there should be breaststroke only lanes at meets?
No, because could you imagine then breaststroke trying to pass breaststroke?
Listen, you guys, do your own thing, okay? You're already weird.
We had
So I was.
Go ahead.
Go on, Luke. Or Luke, go on. I was going to switch gears. Go for it.
Yeah, I was interested about the wide kick, and Shimanovic be on the show a few weeks ago about talking about his narrow kick and knocking, and I'm seeing pictures of you, Zach, with this super wide kick out and keeping that line still. So I'm interested to get to know about your kick a bit more. I mean, the power of it. How do you generate the power in your particular kick for your event? You don't swim Shimanovic events, for instance. Talk about that.
Yeah, and I know for me, like I need to get better at the 100 to help the 200. As simple as that. And that will be kind of hopefully the end of this year we'll do a bit of 100 work, and we've never really done that, so it's kind of an exciting new thing for me. And obviously like that'll be something building into Paris more as a puzzle piece this year. So for me, like, yeah, I guess like I've always kicked really wide and had to kind of adjust it actually narrower than probably I kicked as an age grouper.
Right.
It's just a natural thing I had, and I was very lucky. And I guess the other thing I think that actually helped me, which a lot of coaches would probably be like, oh, I don't know, but I think like my own personal thing is that I used to get super bad ear infections as a kid, and I used to just kick like whole sessions. So I did like 4K kick as like a 12-year-old.
Wow.
So like I don't know, maybe my theory is that like I got very good at kick very young, and then just like maintained that through my older age group. I don't get them as bad anymore, but so I wear worn earplugs for the last 12 years. But yeah, so like for me, that's probably also part of the reason that I kick so well. And I think like Vince, my coach, also loves kick and kick sets. So yeah, I'm always challenging myself to keep up with the backstroke kickers and stuff like that. So yeah.
So right now for your 100 breast, is your kick that much different or just a quicker tempo at the moment?
Yeah, it's definitely narrower. I think like it's more to do with, I guess if you're looking at a side profile of the kick, where the knee bend or the knee flexion stops is probably where the differential is. It's definitely narrower. But yeah, it is like probably just not as powerful. Like, like I'm not as strong as some of those guys. Like, at the Olympics, I weighed like 72 kilos. I don't know, like some of the other guys would have been well into the 80s. I'm like, it's 10 kilos of like lean mass difference. So like for me, that's something like important for me to like realize and know that like that's another shift and something that does excite me because it is an opportunity and a space for opportunity. So yeah, like that's probably something we'll break down and do some biomechanic work at the end of this year, around that 100 piece.
When you're doing biomechanical work, is it with your coach, the Australian Institute of Sport, or how is Australia currently kind of finding that balance of continuing to improve your guys' mechanics?
So we, like in Queensland, so the state, we use a state body. So we have basically like QAS, so Queensland Academy of Sport, which is, so the AIS has kind of basically all institutes within each state has like kind of trickled into that. So Queensland Academy of Sport is what we use. And so I have a biomechanic physio, an SNC or strength and conditioning, and then like my own coach, pretty much always like looking at stroke mechanics and how we can get better and prevent injury and all those kind of bits and pieces. So it's like it's just gotten to the point where it's quite a good group, always looking at the kick and always looking at the biomechanics. So for me, that's really an important thing and something really, I guess, important to me, that it is a team and a good collaboration amongst all different skill areas and all different ideas. So yeah, like that's something I'm excited about. And yeah.
I want to ask about your training a bit. So I read somewhere you train with a guy who goes 344 to 400 free, who can medal at the Olympics. You train with Jack McCracken, you train in the and when we swam, we had sprinters mid-D distance, and then breaststrokers did something on the side. I wasn't too sure what they were doing. Yeah, exactly. You're kicking along in a 5 meter deep pool, which is insane. Do you enjoy suffering in training? Is that something you live for? And what's it like training with a guy who can swim a mile, you know?
Yeah. I really enjoy training, probably more so than racing. And that's something like, then I had to learn how to enjoy racing, which sounds counterintuitive to most people, right? Like you don't necessarily enjoy the suffering or enjoy it, but I think it's more, rather than suffering, it's enjoying the challenge, enjoying challenging yourself each and every day and trying to get the best out of yourself each and every day and be better than the last. And that's as simple as it is. And it was always good to train alongside someone like Jack. And before that, it was Jack and Jess Ashwood as well, who was like 800 freestyler. So, you know, like training along those guys. And then like we had a few 400 IMers as well. And then I had like a sprint breaststroker going into the Olympics as well. Like Liam was one of my training partners, Liam Hunter, who was on the Commonwealth Games team in 2018. So it was always fun to like race like at training. Like I would do aerobic breaststroke and he'd hate it and I'd love it. And then like we'd get to the sprint stuff and I'd not love it, but he would always beat me in the sprint. So it was always fun to like have those challenges of like where I am uncomfortable, they would challenge me. And then it was always great to be able to jump over a couple of lanes. And yeah, no, don't get me wrong. Like I do train probably more on the lengthier side for a breaststroke.
Right.
I'm not necessarily training point free.
Right.
Like,
explain what you mean by you train with these guys. Like, do you do the same?
Yeah,
sets?
like occasionally, yeah. Quite often, like if I'm in a heavy work, like we'll be doing similar distances, and if they're doing like 6.6s, I'll do 6.3s breast. Like, so like it's not like like there's things like that.
You guys missed he wants a 400 breaststroke event. I don't know why this is surprising to you. Come on now.
Yeah, I'd love a 4. I reckon a 300 breaststroke would be more interesting because like you could have it more tactical. Because like I feel like whatever you went in the second 100, like it would typically be your last 100. So it would be like who could go out the fastest and hold on. Because like everyone's going to be in the same amount of pain at 300. Like it's just who can hold on. Well, I think anyway. But because a 400 breaststroke is more like mentally challenging than I think a 300. Like it's a 300, you can kind of put yourself on the line and suffer for another minute. Whereas like a 400, you're like suffering for a lot longer.
What do you need to go?
For
300.
3. I've gone 318.
Damn.
So I went through in 212. I was like, it was a Monday afternoon, and I was like, you know what? Like, fuck it. I'm just going to send the 200 and see what happens. So I went through in like 112. This is like mid-season, and then like turned and went 106. I was like, oh, that's not bad.
That's so crazy.
Breaststroke's one of these events where you always got DQ'd. you got DQ'd for symptom as a kid, as an adult, as a world champion. You always get DQ'd in breaststroke, and the rules have changed. Kidajama changed the sport. It's really evolving all the time. What's that one evolution you wish you could see? Like you're in practice, like, oh, I wish I didn't have to do that. Like I wish they changed that backstroke rule where you when you're in a touch, how Reese got DQ'd and overturned, right? At Worlds. What's that one thing in breaststroke that you wish could be evolved or improved?
One hand turns.
One hand turns. But in backstroke, when I saw backstroke, you do bucket turns. I mean, that changed.
Bucket turns.
Yeah,
Wow, that's a throwback.
In your wool suit, you had sorry, pantaloons, I think is what you guys called it back then.
But is there something in breaststroke that you could see, like the evolution of this stroke?
Sorry.
I mean,
I'm not sure. Like, if I'm perfectly honest, I think like breaststroke's one of those strokes where it's a bit different in that like it has strict rules, but it also doesn't. Like we don't have a 15-meter rule. We have one. Like we have a rule about what you can do, but not in what order as well. So I think like breaststrokes, I don't see it changing much unless like you do a one-hand turn or you do allow a flip turn. Like, but even then, like I don't know how much it would improve it over like a 200-meter event, because you're talking more about like your in speed and your out speed than the actual turn speed. So I think like for me, like I guess I don't really take much thought to that either, because I'm like, oh well, how can I get as fast as I can within the rules like we engage with? So yeah, I probably don't wish beyond what we currently have.
What you can do.
Do you think?
Go ahead.
Do you think it's an issue? And we've talked to Shmanovich about this too. Because he's been kind of the center of some controversy with the technique and sort of undulating hip motion. And he's not alone, right? Like at last Worlds or somewhere Europeans, there was like a bunch of DQs in the 50. Emery Sachi, like, what are your thoughts on that technique? Do you think it's like towing the line within the rules?
It is.
Yeah,
absolutely, it is. It is because like. You watch like Kitajima, for example, like his finish of his kick is using his hips, and like he finishes with like almost like a flutter kick, like a fly kick.
Yeah.
So to some degree, it's within the line. It's like whether it's intentional or not, or whether it's part of the kick, which is difficult to distinguish.
Right.
And that's where I guess it comes into controversy of like whether it is, and whether it's intentional into the wall to take a half stroke. That's the other thing. And I think that's where people might argue, oh, yeah, but it's like what they do at training and those kind of things. So it's like, it's an interesting one, because it is one that like I know like Mel Marshall, for example, like spoke out about it, that it's like not great. Like she said, it's like just, it's not part of the stroke. It is cheating. And like, so it's like, oh, okay, something like that. But yeah, it is part of the stroke, but it is, I believe, like part of the end of the kick. But how you distinguish that is, up to FINA to determine. And I know they brought in the underwater footage as well, which is good, I think. And like, Vanderberg as well off the start is another like thing that I think is also questionable. It also, like, at the end of the day, do you want to be like, because everyone sees those videos, like when you win, it's like, do you want to be known as the guy that cheated? Also, it's like, probably not. So at the end of the day, like, it's, for me, it's about being within the rules. But like, I do understand where people are trying to push those boundaries, and like Kitajima, for example, was one of those people that kind of bent the rules and then created a new rule.
Exactly.
So it is a hard one, I guess, and it's something FINA needs to work out, whether you allow one fly kick into the wall or something like that.
Yeah. If you were gonna, that'd be crazy though. It's a crazy thing about Kitajima's legacy in that regard, like that he basically did something that wasn't supposed to be done, and then they said, "Okay, you can do it."
Yeah.
What, I don't know. I'm just curious. Have you ever thought about that for you? Like, what would you do? And then it would henceforth be the Zac Stubblety-Cook rule.
I don't know. Maybe no pull out, just like
No
swim
pull
under
out.
the surface.
Dive in and go.
Yeah.
Zach, I want
No
to
pull
ask
out.
300
Or 200
breaststroke. That's his
Or,
legacy.
or a 200 meter pool, I reckon. No turn, just a straight line.
Zach, I want to ask you some non-swimming questions because I think it's important to get to know who you are a bit. Who are you? I see you into photography. Are you a Canon guy, a Hasselblad guy? Are you a smoker or a griller in your barbecue? I read about this. Sorry, we did some reading. I mean, who are you? What's your love? What keeps you grounded? Getting past all this swimming nonsense. What keeps you?
Yeah, I think for me, like something last year that definitely kept me grounded was like taking photos and enjoying photography again. And something that made me enjoy photography was like actually getting back into film, which like I've got like 20 rolls here for Com Games to take photos on film.
Yeah.
So I've got like just a bag of.
So you shoot 35 mil then. So you don't do medium formats. It's 35 mil, and you just enjoy that.
35 mil film, yeah. So I have three film cameras with me, a Canon, a Hasselblad, and a Nikon. All three, you know.
Oh,
Don't
that's
like to.
range, bro. The Hasselblad trumps it all, don't you think? Come on. I love my Nikon.
Yeah. Yeah, the Nikon is, I think, the one I reach for the most though, because it's an underwater film camera.
Oh.
It's like so fun to use and so good to.
Nice.
Yeah, so good to use and enjoy. But yeah, like beyond the pool, that's something that kept me grounded. Like I asked, Mac was my roomie last year at the Olympics, Mac Horton, and I asked him and said, like, oh, what do you wish you did more of, like during the Olympic experience? And he said, remember it. So for me, like that was something really important that I took on board and took lots of photos and made like a little, like basically a photo book from the Olympics and had like all these photos and memories and like reflected on them, like wrote about each one. And that's something that really kept me grounded and made me realize like how special all of these events are to everyone. And then, I do love cooking and cooking for other people. That's probably my other love outside of the pool is I enjoy cooking and coffee. Like coffee is definitely something that always travels with me on the road.
True Aussie.
Coffee snob, yeah. Just embracing the full stereotype, yeah. But yeah, like that's something that always travels with me and always is a bit of a home comfort. Is something like I do every morning. It's like a bit of a mindfulness practice. So it's filter coffee only, so black coffee only, and something that like takes like 10 minutes to do, and it's first thing in the morning, and something you just like slow down every time you do it and can't do anything else and just like focused on that and really gets you very mindful and present for that day. And it's something really I enjoy doing while I'm racing. But yeah, cooking, I love cooking for the people I love. So I love to, smoke meats and cook bread and all those other fun things in between. So yeah.
There's a coffee spot next to the Hilton on George Street in Sydney, and it's out of this world. So next time you go to Sydney, go to the coffee spot next door, and they put chocolate on their cappuccinos in Australia, boys. So just heads up, they put chocolate powder.
Yeah, chocolate powder, and they use real milk, not box milk.
There we go. I have one last question before we jump onto the end section. To keep you grounded too is your support and your people. I remember I sat next to Matt Horton's parents at Rio when he won, and just to see the tears and the support and the love of this whole family there, it was loving. So talk about not just your people, your family and your friends, but also your sponsors. You are well supported. You've got an agency. You've got really good sponsors. Talk about some of your support financially and emotionally from people around you that keep you going to who you are.
Yeah, I think like I was very lucky growing up. My mum is definitely like probably my biggest influence in grounded. She's just at the end of the day wants me to be happy in whatever I'm doing, and that's as simple as that, and enjoying that. Outside of that, I think for me, like I have a really close group of friends, and both in and out of swimming, that keep me grounded. I think and them knowing me as a person first and foremost is the most important thing to me. And like at the end of the day, like they find it really cool that I'm a world champion, world record holder, and Olympic champion. But at the same time, they're like, oh, you're still just Zac. Like it doesn't matter. Like that's just you. You're just going and enjoying yourself and having fun and traveling Europe and traveling the world. Like they're all a bit jealous, but here's what it is. They chose their career and I chose mine. But yeah, and then like outside of that, I obviously have massive support from Speedo and Mrs. Reinhardt as well. So Gina Reinhardt's still very lucky that she supports a lot of the Australian swim team. And then Speedo has been a supporter of me since 2018, so the last 4 years. So yeah, I've loved their suits, love everything about them and what the brand stands for, and did originate down in Sydney on Bondi Beach. So it's also like, you know, that regard to it. So they're the two, you know, biggest supports I've had over the years, and we've got many other support networks, but yeah, I think they're the big two and big keys. But outside of that, you know, I have my performance team that I would call definitely part of that support network, and over the last year especially have really become probably more and more important. I think like you become like the year before the Olympics, we're definitely more connected because it's like it's not, yeah, as I said to someone the other day, it's like in the Olympic year, it's not whether you can do something, it's like, all right, how can you do it? Like it's not, yeah, it just becomes how. It's not about whether you can or cannot, it's just do. So for me, that support team really helped me through that and guided me through that. And then after the Olympics, obviously, like the come down and everything like that, they've also been really supportive through that, and understanding that I need some time and space to work out what I want to do in swimming and how I want to progress in my swimming. So yeah, like that's an integral part, because obviously, like, you know, you're spending 35 hours a week with a lot of them. So that's really important as well.
Zac, we got a few rapid fire questions for you before we let you go.
Easy.
What's the hardest race in swimming?
Well, I'd say the 4 or the 800 free.
If you had to pick one, Olympic gold, world champ, world record, or Commonwealth champ?
Olympics.
Do you pee in the pool?
Yes, always. There's two types of people that pee in the pool and say they pee in the pool, and people that pee in the pool and don't say they pee in the pool.
Who's funnier, Zac and Surdy or Zac Stubblety-Cook?
And Surdy.
What's the best and worst British food you've experienced since being there?
All into 24 hours. I actually had like Greek for lunch, so I haven't really experienced British food.
We'll avoid it. What number Aussie Olympian are you, and do you have the tattoo? What's your dolphin number?
I have the swimmer number tattooed, so the Australian swim team number. So I'm number 794. So I have it on my arm here.
Who was number one?
Freddie Lane. He was our first Olympic swimming gold medal, and he won in Paris.
You think he had the number one tattoo?
No, well, it was 1908 or something.
People had tattoos then.
Yeah, maybe for different reasons.
Do you think, will someone take the world record under 2 minutes in your lifetime?
I don't think in my lifetime, but I think it's possible.
All Aussies seem to have nicknames. I don't know what it is, but everybody seems to have a nickname, or the name has to end in IE. So
yeah, we're lazy. Everyone just calls each other by like their last names a lot of the time. Like that's just the thing.
So what's yours? That's tough. Is it Stubblety-Cook?
Everyone just calls me Stubblety, like, or Stubblety. But Zac's actually my nickname too, which is because my actual name's Isaac. So like, right. Yeah.
Man of two nicknames.
All right. How often do you do social kick in practice?
Probably never. Not with Vince. Maybe once in a blue moon. It's unreal.
So this is your greatest social kick of all time today.
Yeah.
The only social kick you've had.
Yeah. It's very rare. It's normally like the only time we get social kick is like if he has to run off to like an appointment or a meeting, and like we have to finish off the Ks, and we'll like do the last 800. Be like, oh, you want to kick? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that.
That's the best kind.
Yeah.
Cool, man. Well, enjoy the rest of the taper and prep. Look forward to watching you race. Glad you're able to race up front of the schedule. Agree, that's amazing. So, yeah, good luck with the rest of the season and the time off after that. And look forward to watching you take the world record even lower and keep picking tail, man. Thanks for spending the time.
Too easy. Thank you guys. Thanks guys for having me.
All right, cheers. That's it for this episode of Social Kick, and we'll see you next time. Hey, everybody. Thanks for hanging out with us. If you're enjoying Social Kick, tell your friends about it, and be sure to tell us what you liked by leaving a comment, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Follow us on Instagram. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Social Kick, and you can find all of our content on our website,